Address Teen Stress. I'm Office Shasta, and welcome back to our Teen Stories Told series, where we interview teens or individuals that just crossed their teen years to share their mental health story or give us their thoughts and opinions on teen mental health. Today, I'm here with the host of the New York Times featured She Persisted Podcast, Sadie Sutton. Sadie, can you please start off by telling us a little bit of stuff about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Sadie. I'm the host of She Persisted, a teen mental health podcast that I did after my own health journey as a teen. I struggled a lot with depression and anxiety and tried everything you can imagine locally, whether it was inpatient, outpatient, TBT, family therapy, all the things, and wasn't really seeing a difference in my mood or self-esteem and relationships. And so I ended up going to an intensive program, and I went to a residential and a therapeutic boarding school. So I was in intensive treatment for months. And at the tail end of that, I had really done a complete 180 with my mental health, with my mood, my relationships, self-esteem, belief systems, all of that. And throughout my mental journey, there was a huge lack of teens that were saying, it's okay, you can do this, I have overcome mental health challenges, I'm in recovery, I'm on the other side of this, and you can be too. A lot of adults told me it would get better, but it was really hard to resonate with that. It was really hard to that things would truly shift. I didn't feel like I had enough autonomy to make meaningful changes in my life. And I was also incredibly lucky with the resources I had access to, and the programs I was able to attend, clinicians I was able to work with, and I was aware that so much of what I had gone through was preventable. So I tried to make as much of what I learned in treatment accessible to teens and the resource that I wish I would have had when I was struggling. So we are 170 episodes in at this point. So media posts, and 4 years in at this point, and I'm now a junior at the University of Pennsylvania studying psychology.
That's awesome. So, can you briefly share your personal journey with anxiety and depression, including when you first realized you were struggling and the steps you took to seek help?
Yeah. So I will say that my experience is probably a little bit more abnormal. I struggled a lot, especially 7th and 8th grade. I didn't really realize that I was depressed. I started to develop these symptoms so slowly that I just thought I was feeling normal, was changing. And on my day-to-day, every single day, I was feeling really low and overwhelmed and tired and misunderstood and hopeless. And so I was in a position where I wasn't really sleeping, I wasn't eating much, a conflict in relationships. I pulled back all my friendships. I was struggling with self-harm. I was interestingly doing like with my schoolwork to try and avoid sleep, paying attention to what I was experiencing. But there was no awareness that I was depressed. Again, it just was like, this is just what my life looks like. This is what I'm to feel like. I'm not capable of being for some reason. This is just how my brain works. And so my parents definitely were aware that something wasn't right and that something was different from how I had acted historically, or even just the way I was feeling, different from how most teens feel. And sent to a pediatrician appointment, the whole depression diagnostic questionnaire, and they were pretty quickly like, you're definitely depressed. And so at that point, I was really shut down with regard to asking for help or explaining where I'm at, and really being willing to communicate in any way. And so from there, I ended up spending a week in inpatient program, and then the next year and a half, eighth grade through freshman year of school, was a lot of outpatient programs, whether it was intensive outpatient, group therapy, family therapy, CBT, outpatient TBT, more hospital stays. And the end of that, I was still really struggling. I was depressed. I was really anxious. I had extremely low self-esteem. There were still ineffective ways I was coping with what I was experiencing, whether it was conflict, self-harm, codependent relationships, suicidal ideation. Those things were still the forefront of my life. I was struggling to go to school and be able to stay in class and not have panic attacks, just be so overwhelmed with what I was experiencing. I think the thing was that I just felt like my emotions were controlling me, and there was just so much hopelessness. And so halfway through my freshman year of high school, I went to a residential program that specializes in DBT, or dialectical behavioral therapy, which is an evidence-based treatment for a whole bunch of mental health. But I went to a program specifically for depression, anxiety, and a lot of like emotion dysregulation and family relationships, but has different variation, so many things, whether it's like OCD or borderline personality disorder, teens, adults, all the different these different realms. But it's really a very big turning point, because when I got to this program, the first thing they asked, want to be here. Until that point, it was like, you have to go to therapy, you have to go to these appointments, like you're not doing well, here's the next step. And I didn't believe I was capable of recovering, but I just worked that way. I was believing, or I didn't think I deserving of recovery. My self-esteem was so low, I thought I deserved to be that depressed. There was a lot of blame towards my parents for being like, you raised me, you must have made me this way, this isn't my fault. And again, a lot of like these ineffective of coping with things. And so they made it really clear. They said, if you want to be a part of this program, you have to be a willing participant. All the girls that are here to be here, and they believe this, and they're invested and willing to really commit to trying to recover and give it all. And so I thought about what my next step was, and I was really backed into a corner, and it was, I could do this and be an active participant in my treatment, or I could go to another program where, again, I wasn't going to have an active role. I wasn't going to be the one that was leading me. And so I ended up staying there for 14. There was a number of shifts that took whether it was like getting on a consistent sleep routine and medication management and building a relationship with my parents and working on belief systems. But the biggest shift was like that initial, which is that for the first time I actually trusted clinicians to help me. I was able to be vulnerable. I had enough self-compassion to want to get better and believed that I was capable of getting better. And that was really a true game changer. I was there for 14 weeks, and I went in like lowest of low, suicidally depressed, and I left no longer depressed and really feeling like I could navigate whatever anxiety experience. And so after that, I went to boarding school for 14 months and continued to kind of stabilize that journey and work on rewiring these belief systems and maintaining these relationships, and work on the idea that I was deserving of love and being happy, have healthy relationships and people and all of those different things. And so the end of that, I started the podcast, but it was definitely not an easy journey. It was one of those things where it was like I got worse before I got better. There was a lot of very hopeless moments and feeling very overwhelmed, but definitely getting the right support in place and having access to the right resources did save my life.
And in what ways do you believe that your experience with intensive mental health treatment and recovery has contributed to your personal growth and resilience? And how do you think these aspects play a role in your daily life?
Everything. It changed my mental health completely. I think anyone struggles to implement learn in therapy in their day-to-day lives. It's really hard to make meaningful changes in your routines and habits, and the way you talk to yourself with your emotions when the exact same, because you have all of these environmental cues that aren't changing. And so all of these ineffective coping mechanisms are really reinforced. And so I have something to be said for that, like almost removal from that environment, able to take a step back, learn the skills almost in a bubble, and then go back to spending time with family and being in school and having social relationships and integrating the skills there. I think that was really helpful. Another really unique aspect of intensive treatment at the program I went to is that the family was really involved. And so I was these skills day in and day out, but my parents weren't learning these skills. So in a skills group and learn, here's how you be vulnerable. Here's how you validate someone. Here's how you ask for help. My parents would be in skills group with the other parents and learn, this is what you do when your child says they're struggling, or this is how you make space for their emotions. This is how you set a boundary in a healthy, loving way. And so all of us were there and being committed to making change, working on our relationship. Really incredible. Dialectical behavioral therapy, again, it's an evidence-based intervention. It's shown to be extremely effective for suicidal ideation, manipulation, depression, anxiety, self-harm, all of those things. And so having access to evidence-based care with world-renowned clinicians and individuals who are just the absolute best in the world at what they do and with teens in a specific area. So grateful for, and that truly made the world of a difference. They do incredible work at 3 East, which is the program. And I can't them enough, but I would say that was really what that differentiator was. And then most of my mental health foundation is those early days treatment, whether it's going back to that sleep schedule or building those healthy relationships, using those coping skills that I was early days. Obviously that's the first time that I started to implement them, and since then it's been maintaining those and learning new skills and adding on to skill set, but without having that foundation where I would be today. So really just, again, had a huge impact.
Some individuals have had negative experiences within the troubled teen industry. How do you think that your experience compares, and what changes and what would you suggest for this industry to better support teenagers' mental health?
Yeah, this is a huge question. I'm so glad you asked about that, because this is another kind of thing to talk about. So the residential 203 East McLean Hospital, incredible. When you talk about a reputable evidence-based program that's doing it right, that is the furthest thing from this troubled teen industry, that program is like the example. Not familiar with the troubled teen industry, it's a kind of umbrella for these other non-evidence-based and less regulated programs. So these are religious programs, therapeutic boards, wilderness program, residential programs. There are tens of thousands of kids currently in programs in the United States, and then there's a lot of key differentiators between troubled teen programs and evidence-based mental health care. The biggest thing for when you're looking for a treatment program is it attached to a well-known, world-renowned either hospital or university. So McLean is attached to Harvard Medical School. There's a lot of, that's right near Mass Gen, and work really closely with a lot of those mental health programs as well. So like that larger body that's really regulated and has a lot of eyes on it, is it attached to? These super independent programs don't have that regulation and don't have as many oversight. So troubled are different in a couple of ways, and there's a lot of things that you can look for when finding a program. I think one of the biggest things is length of stay. When I went to McLean, they were very clear. Stay is 6 to 8 weeks, and when it became longer, because my family and I were willing to do the work and wanted to opt to lengthen that stay, they were very transparent about that. When you go to a troubled teen program like the therapeutic boarding school I went to, there were like probably 10 months, ended up being 14 months. There were girls that were there for 3 years. So like a really ambiguous length of stay or a long-term length of stay. I think that really adds that outcomes with troubled teen programs, and the negative experiences for teens is that it's really hard, again, to learn skills in an environment, at your home environment, and be expected to thrive. So I went to a therapeutic boarding school 5 minutes south of Canada in the middle of nowhere. I talked to my parents like a week. So then when I'm back in my junior high school, living with my parents 24/7, having access to a phone and social media and a computer and actual social relationships, and it's not a boarding school girls where we're just sitting in a classroom all day. Like those skills don't transfer. And so looking for that really integrate the family education and integrate social relationships, that should be really seamless, because that environment you need to be able to thrive in and need to be ready to transition to. Troubled teen programs will really heavily restrict communication with families. Big length of stay, probably won't have psychologists or psychologists on their full-time staff. You won't be able to point you to specific studies backing up what they're doing. So like if you ask my program, they'll send you a study about why nature is good for mental health, and that's not really what evidence-based care is. And so it's really unfortunate, and that's definitely something that I try to share with, where this therapeutic boarding school not the best time. It was really overwhelming. It was traumatic in ways. they're going through a lawsuit right now. So there's this spectrum of like really incredible evidence-based treatment that need and should have access to. And then the most heartbreaking thing that happens, which is that a teen asks for help. The parent looks for someone to help the family, and you're unfortunately in a situation where more problems are created, needs aren't met, unregulated treatment takes place. And so it's heartbreaking. And I think the big underscore there is that parents are for support, and these programs are saying exactly what they want to hear, which is that will help will fix your child. They won't be depressed. And so unfortunately, you have to be really critical with the programs, ask questions about what qualifications are, what it is. If they ask you to sign over 51% of custody, do not go to that program. I think generally any wilderness program, any therapeutic boarding school is teen industry. And if it's not attached to a reputable hospital, if they haven't received large amount of funding from whether it's like nonprofits or mental health initiatives, universities for research, probably not evidence-based. But it's a really challenging thing to navigate and look for and experience a whole other hurdle when it comes to accessing mental health care. I definitely would recommend going to Unsilenced websites. They're an incredible nonprofit. Their website is unsilenced.org, and they have a ton of research, like what to look for, and what questions to ask, what programs are in the troubled teen industry, where have lawsuits been filed, all of those kinds of things, and a lot of really great education. So right now there's 120,000 kids in residential centers. 350 kids have died at these programs. 5,000 programs exist in the United States. So incredible resource, incredible nonprofit. And if you want to learn more and be that, head to that website.
Yeah, I love like all the points you made. I think they're very valid and very interesting. I bet that the things that you talked about in your own podcast, She Persisted. So can you talk to us a little bit about that podcast? And is there any knowledge you obtained through your journey creating the podcast that you
Yeah, I mean, so much has been learned in the past 4 years. We are 170 episodes in, and I've had the opportunity to sit down with so many incredible individuals to working towards this goal of creating that resource for teens that are struggling. Our episodes, anything and everything that you can ever imagine. That DBT was really helpful in my own mental health journey. And so I try to integrate that as much as possible. I do a lot of solo episodes where I teach the skills. I talk about what I'm doing today. I talk about using these skills to navigate finals and college and high school, all of those kinds of things. With regard to what you can expect in the cast, there's weekly episodes, and I try again do a mix of guest episodes and solo episodes and cover every aspect of mental health, whether it is resources parents and what teens from a parent of a teen who's struggling, everything from eating disorders to family relationships, body image, loneliness, so many aspects of just that can correlate mental health challenges and mental illnesses in teens. So yeah, you can find literally anything and everything when it comes to teen mental health. And if you're not a podcast, you want to start out small, post as much like educational content as possible on Instagram and TikTok, so you can get like bite-sized mental health education and content straight into your feed. With